Hey everyone, Stuart Guskine and I are part of a group of friends that have gone to 8 Super Bowls together. Now, they've gone to more Super Bowls than that. My other friend Beth has been to, I don't know, 10, 11, 12. At any rate, this year I didn't go, Beth didn't go, a number of us didn't go, but Stuart did go and took his son with him. Stuart was one of those people who bought Super Bowl tickets, but were not allowed initially to sit in seats that they purchased because of the fire marshal issue. Here's Stuart talking to me on video using Skype about what happened, and also talking about his entire Dallas, Arlington, Fort Worth Super Bowl experience. It's quite interesting. Now, at points in the video, it might sound like Stuart's repeating himself, or I am, but that's because we want to make sure that you hear what we're talking about and overcome the perturbations in signal because we're using the Skype video system, which overall worked very well. You have to consider, Stuart called me, said I want to do this right now. He was at a Dallas restaurant with his computer. I said, do you have a webcam? He said, yes. I said, do you have Skype? He says, yes. I said, let's do it. So all this happened in the span of a few minutes, and that's it. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Stewie. I think we went to how many Super Bowls? With Miami twice, right?
Something Jesus, like that. Man. It's got to be 8 or 9, Zen.
Yeah, 8 or 9. Miami twice. Houston, a bunch of them.
It's got to be 8 or 9 Super Bowls.
Yeah, at least 8 or 9 Super Bowls. But this one...
We were New Orleans.
New Orleans, yep. New Orleans.
This was the worst.
What happened?
Yep, this was the worst. Danny, it was the worst setup I've ever seen at a Super Bowl. They were short on staff. There was no signage leading people to gates. There was very few gates that were open. People stuck waiting in line 2 hours to get in. Older people who were handicapped had a very difficult time waiting in line to try and get in. And if they weren't in wheelchairs, forget it. You know, if they had canes or walkers or anything like that, they stood in line like every other slob did. It was awful. It was terribly set up. And especially trying to get into the tailgate party. Anybody with tailgate tickets, there was you know how normally there's big signage, hey, NFL tailgate at every Super Bowl we're at?
Yeah.
There was a guy who was there was one step standing in front with one of the tailgate tickets that was maybe 6 inches by 12 inches, holding it above his head saying, this is the gate entrance.
Oh my God.
It was a joke. It was a joke. They screwed up. It was the worst setup I've ever seen in an NFL. And then on top of it, I happened to be one of the fortunate ones that had the bizarre seats that weren't signed off by the fire department yet.
Yeah.
And I stood in line with my son, and this was the first time I took my son. I promised him when he turned 21, I was going to take him to the Super Bowl. It happened to be this year. Mm-hmm. And, you know, obviously I'm very excited about taking my son.
Yeah.
Here it is in Dallas, stadium in the world. Very excited about it. So we come in. We find out that the cabs are on strike. all the Dallas cabs are on strike. So trying to get around Dallas was horrendous. But I must give credit to the Sheraton Dallas North.
That's where you stayed?
These guys are unbelievably awesome. I tip my hats to this Sheraton here in North Dallas. They were phenomenal. The staff was great, very accommodating, very helpful. Probably one of the best stays that I've had in a long time. So I give the whole staff at Dallas, the Sheraton North Dallas, big kudos here. They really helped make up for the mess that was here. You know, trying to use their shuttle to get people around. But the problem was this venue was more spread out than it was in Houston. You remember how bad it was in Houston?
Yeah, that was awful. Yeah, awfully spread out. It was good, but it's spread out. Yeah.
This was worse, man. This was worse than that. I mean, here I am at the Sheraton, and, you know, there was some excitement going on here with the Green Bay fans and the Pitt fans. But other than that, trying to get downtown to where any of the parties were, forget it. It took forever. Or you had to bring a cosigner. It cost me $50 to bring my son to the downtown convention center for the NFL experience from the hotel. $50.
Wait, it cost you $50 to get there?
$50 to get there. Yep.
Oh.
Yep, because the shuttle didn't run that far, which I understood. They're ferrying people back to the airport in the Galleria. They couldn't take people down to the NFL experience, so trying to find a cab, all you had was the scabs that came in to make up for the cabs on strike, and they're charging whatever they wanted. It was either that or you didn't get there.
So they're extorting you,
Now
basically.
the NFL, listen, the NFL experience was fantastic. They did a very nice job this year. Other than that, the Super Bowl experience was the worst I've ever experienced.
How did you get?
Jerry Jones blew it.
How did you get your tickets?
Well, we scalped them like we did virtually every year. You know, we did very well. You know, the brokers really ruined this because came game day, singles were 3,800. Pairs for upper deck were 4,000
Now,
a ticket.
now for my viewers, the NFL
Run
gives
into this young gal and her dad.
Now for my viewers,
the NFL.
the times now. This is for my viewers and for the NFL. I have to say this. When I get my tickets, there are times when I just give mine to Stewie for face, right?
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah.
No doubt. No ifs, ands, or buts. This year, the brokers were out in force. Like I've never seen at a Super Bowl. There was actually a broker who had an RV set up with tickets.com, and they had line out the door charging people $3,800 for singles.
$3,800
for one ticket for a single.
That's outrageous.
Now, it was ridiculous. The brokers took this Super Bowl and ruined it, as far as I'm concerned. They drove it up to the highest ticket cost I've ever seen at a Super Bowl because the brokers controlled all the tickets. The average person came screwed out of the Super Bowl. I mean, my son and I got lucky. We were hanging out for about an hour and a half where the buses came in, and we got lucky. One gal, a local gal from Texas, she won them on a lottery, and she sold me her 2 tickets for $3,000, which was a deal.
Yeah.
They were under face value, and I paid $1,500 apiece. Otherwise, trying to get them through a broker or trying to buy them anywhere else around the stadium, very few people sell them except for the brokers.
Hey, what do you think the NFL should do to stop brokers from getting all these tickets all the time? And because I heard also people had counterfeit tickets or something.
Yeah, I heard there was quite a few counterfeit tickets, and I heard they were really well done counterfeit tickets. They had the hologram and everything. So I don't know what the NFL is going to do next year. But as far as getting them out of the hands of the brokers, I don't think that'll ever happen. Only because, you know, some people just can't afford to travel. It's down to the game, so the fans are selling their tickets. I mean, that's what they're doing. I don't know how the NFL can meter that in the future. I don't think there's any way they can. But I'll tell you one thing, the brokers ruined this game for the average fan to go. Because there was people that came down from Wisconsin, people that came in from Pitt. There's no way they could afford $4,000 a seat.
No
way.
Not at all.
Not in
this economy either.
Correct. And that was the thing that really hurt a lot of people. Was, you know, it was hard enough for them to scrape the money together to drive down here through the ice storms and the snowstorms. I mean, my son and I got here Thursday night. We checked in at about, I'm going to say 11 o'clock at night, and it started snowing 10 minutes later. We woke up Friday morning, there was 5 inches of snow in Dallas.
Oh, my God.
Right. Now, this town is not prepared for that. We didn't see one plow out on the roads. People were doing 15, 20 miles an hour. Plus, trying to get around again because no cabs was horrendous.
See, I thought that was going to be a problem. That's why I didn't, because in my case for the viewer, the NFL, because I tried to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland, they let me buy 2 tickets at face every year, and I go with my friends here. But this year, I promised my mom, I was going to watch it here in Georgia, which is what I did. But
Right.
I went to school down in Dallas. I went to Texas Arlington for undergraduate school, before I went to Cal, for grad school. And I thought, that's going to be the most spread out Super Bowl in history. And it looks like I was right. They had stuff in Fort Worth, which is 15 miles from Arlington,
There was no rhythm to the Super Bowl whatsoever. I mean, my suggestion to the NFL, I'm looking forward to Indianapolis. That's going to be a great venue for the Super Bowl. Everything's tight-knit.
Yeah.
Walk to the stadium. A lot of the hotels are interconnected. I'm very excited. I would never come to another Super Bowl like this ever again because I thought I learned my lesson in Houston. I didn't remember 30 years ago when I lived in Dallas how spread out it was, and it didn't. Yeah, I did. I forgot how spread out it was, and I wasn't thinking. I was thinking more about bringing my 21-year-old son, as I promised him I would when he turned 21, and excited about going to Texas Stadium. I mean, biggest venue in the world. I mean, very exciting, but it didn't click that it's an hour away.
Let alone with the weather and everything. How did you actually get? Were you able to get in the stadium? What happened with the whole ticket issue? So, to take it from the top, basically, you got a ticket. Arrived at the stadium. You paid $300 to get to the stadium from your hotel, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Jeez. And then you got to the stadium, and then when did you realize you weren't going to get into the NFL tailgate? You had to pay $200 for the NFL tailgate party and $1,500 a piece for 2 tickets.
Right, $1,500 each, $3,000 for the 2 tickets, and then I scalped a couple of tailgate tickets outside, which again the brokers were trying to sell for $2,000 a ticket.
Wait, they were trying to sell the NFL tailgate parties for $2,000 a ticket?
A piece, and they were selling them 2 days in advance. Right.
What?
Yep, the brokers got their hands on the tailgate tickets, and it was insane. There was even people outside trying to scalp them for $1,500 to $2,000 a ticket. I found a guy who didn't want to go in without his friends, and he sold them to me for $200 each, which was reasonable. I didn't have a problem with that. So then we wait online for an hour and a half. We get in, we get patted down, and they're checking our tickets to go in, and it comes up declined. Supervisor comes over and says, well, we've got an issue with your seats. Really? What's the issue? Well, from what we hear, the fire marshal hasn't signed off on your seats. I was like, well, that's not my problem.
So you got real tickets, not fake, and the fire marshal didn't sign off on them. You guys didn't know that.
Yep, we had no idea. So she said, we can't allow you into the stadium. I said, hold on. I've got tickets for the tailgate party. She says, we don't care. We can't let you in. Your tickets have not been signed off on. I was like, hold on. You're telling me the tickets that we bought, that somebody got through the NFL and paid for these, they're not fraudulent. Nope, they're not fraudulent. Your section has not been opened up by the fire marshal yet. I said, well, that's not our problem.
Right.
That's your problem. You need to allow us to go into the tailgate party, enjoy ourselves, and by the time we're ready to go in the game, I'm sure the fire marshal, well, we can't let you in.
And
what do you mean?
The thing about it is that they could have let you into the tailgate party anyway. You know, they didn't. I mean, normally people get in the tailgate party, go in because they have Super Bowl tickets. That's the way it works. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. This is upsetting. Wow.
So they wouldn't even let us in. I said, well, listen, I'm not waiting in line again. She said, sir, you need to leave. I was like, listen, I'm not leaving. I just waited in line for an hour and a half. I'm not going back out to wait in line another hour and a half to get back in. Well, you got to go to the reissuance lot, and the NFL will reissue tickets. I was like, excuse me? I said, listen, I'm not leaving. She says, if you don't leave, we're going to bring the police over here, and they're going to arrest you. I said, you're kidding me. I said, you people sold me fraudulent tickets, and you're going to have me arrested for making a scene because you won't let me into the tailgate? I said, I've been to 8 or 9 Super Bowls. I couldn't be more appalled if I wanted to be. I said, your whole attitude towards a screw-up on your part, you're threatening to arrest me because of your screw-up? I said, that's appalling. I said, first of all, you know what? I'm just going to leave, go to this lot 11, because I'm here with my son. I don't want to make this any more of a bad experience than the experience we just had waiting in line for an hour and a half to get in.
Yeah.
Where last year, if I waited in line 20 minutes to get in the tailgate party, it was a long time. Not an hour and a half, maybe 20 minutes. So we go to this lot 11. Nobody's there. Nobody's there.
An open lot, no tent, no nothing.
Nothing. There's a security guard who says, yeah, they've been sending a lot of people over here, and this is not where you need to go. You need to go to lot 4, which is on the opposite side of the stadium.
Wait, that big place?
Oh, my Zenny, it took us another 20 minutes to a half an hour to walk over to this so-called lot 4 that we couldn't get into because it was all fenced off. And then I stop another guard, and he says, no, go over to this trailer over there, and they'll direct you. Well, they sent us over to a trailer that was an NFL Ticketmaster trailer. And thank God guys were really accommodating over there. They said, yeah, you're not the first, and we're not sure where to send you. Let us make some phone calls for you. Well, by the time they figured out where to send us, now there's a group of 400 or 500 irate people who just stood in line for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and experienced the same thing we did. So there's ready to be a riot going on. So the guys from NFL Ticketmaster finally found out that the NFL put a tent up, but now it's another quarter-mile away. So and it's further away from the stadium. Now it's in an outer lot, further away from the stadium, where we had to cross this bridge, go into where they had a tent, and there's 3 NFL guys standing there. We said, okay, we're here to get our tickets reissued. Oh, no, we don't have any other tickets for you. You don't? Well, then what are you going to do with us? We don't know. You don't know? What do you mean you don't know? Why did they send us over here? I said, I'm very confused. And I spoke to this one English-speaking guy, and I told him how appalled I was. I said, this is my 8th or 9th Super Bowl. I've never experienced anything like this before, especially after waiting in a line for an hour and a half, being shut out of the tailgate party, and then being sent 3/4 of the way around the stadium, no direction, no nothing,
and
nobody knowing
rest and everything else.
Right. Nobody has a clue what's going on. I said, this is the most appalling Super Bowl I've ever been at. It is, the right hand's not talking to the left. Nobody knows what's going on. And now on top of it, you're telling me that the tickets you sold us are no good. We can't go in. That's kind of called fraud. You sold me a ticket to a stadium to sit in a seat that's not existing. That's fraud.
Yeah. So how did this get resolved?
We're there for about 20 minutes to half an hour, and all of a sudden the guy answers his phone. He runs out and goes, everybody in section 126 and 130, you're okay to go in. And then he runs away. I mean, literally ran
that includes
away.
You, right?
Oh, yeah. I didn't run. My son and I walked, and we finally got in. It took us another half an hour to get in.
What was do you remember your seat number? What was
We were in section 429A.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we were.
429A.
429A. So it was, from what I understand, the sections that were the problem were 426 to 430. Those were the problem ones. But my point being is, we got to that stadium at 1 o'clock. We stood online until 2:30. We were turned away. We didn't get into that stadium until 4:45. Game is in 45 minutes.
Jeez.
We didn't enjoy any of the Super Bowl until we got into the game. None of the outside activities. We missed the whole tailgate.
Which you spent $200 for.
Right. Everything. We got shut out of everything. All the happening. And you know how exciting that is. All the fair, everything that's going on. The bands are playing. You're able to have a couple of drinks. Mm-hmm. It's my son's 21st birthday
party. Tailgate party, it's all the food you can eat from wherever you happen to get it from there.
And there's always a couple of good bands playing. Oh, yeah. I'm pumping this up. I'm excited. Yeah, Josh, I can't wait until we get in. You're going to love this.
There's celebrities. You might have seen A-Rod there hanging out with Cameron Diaz.
Listen, let me tell you what. It was a terrible experience, man. Terrible experience. It really was. Jerry Jones blew it. The NFL blew it. They were understaffed. There was no signage on telling people where to go. I don't know if you heard me before. For people who were looking for entrances to the tailgate party, there was a staff guy standing outside holding one of the NFL tailgate party tickets saying, this is the entrance. There was no sign that said, hey, tailgate people come here. So you got into a line with people that were trying to go to their regular seats that had no tailgate tickets instead of just tailgate entrance tickets. Nobody knew where to go.
And you said that there was some people ended up being in the basement watching the game?
Yeah,
basement of the stadium?
Yeah, there was 400 people that their seats never got signed off by the fire marshal. So they were given a choice of either walking around the stadium and finding a place to stand and watch the game, or they were shuffled down into, I think he said, the Hall of Fame room in the basement of the stadium, where they set up a couple of widescreen TVs. Mm-hmm. TVs were 2-second time delayed, so they were hearing people in the stadium going crazy over plays and then seeing it like 2 seconds later what was going on.
Go ahead.
One guy, one guy I met in the hotel said to me, he said, the only thing we could see were the players' feet out this one window of the basement of the stadium.
Horrible, horrible.
This guy traveled from Green Bay, Wisconsin, all the way down here.
So the stadium itself, separate from the city, what'd you think of the stadium?
Stadium was awesome. Top shelf. I mean, you name it, it had it. It was squeaky clean. The staff inside were great, very accommodating. There's not a bad seat in the house. I don't care if you sit up in the very top level. There's not a bad seat in the house. We had a full view of the entire field. We were able to watch the plays develop. And if you wanted to, you looked up and there was a crystal clear screen in front of you. So for that, I was excited that we were in the stadium. Great, great stadium.
Now, these are makeshift seats? What were they?
Yeah, they were makeshift seats. They were actually bleachers that were set up. To me, they were very dangerous. Now, I'm only a 50-year-old guy. They were extremely steep. As far as I was concerned, they weren't constructed very well. They were a little rickety as far as I was concerned. The problem that I foresaw is that there was a problem. The hallways in between the bleachers to get you in and out were too narrow. I ran into a fire marshal who was trying to walk through the crowd of people once they released the seats and we were able to get in. So everybody was hurrying to get in. God forbid there was a problem. There would have been a stampede of people trying to get out of those stands and get to one of the stairwells, which there was no signs to where the stairs were. None. It wasn't like exit signs here or there or in case of fire, go here. There was no signage except for this is your section.
How was it to get out of the stadium and get back to your hotel room? Did you have to pay a lot of money or?
It was like pulling teeth. It was extremely difficult. I wound up paying $200. I paid a cabbie $100 a piece to get us back to the hotel.
Jeez.
And there was 4 other people in the van cab, and they went downtown. It took us an hour and a half to get back to the stadium, almost 2 hours. Yeah, it was horrible. It really was.
And during the snow, how long were you there? You got there what? What day did you get there?
I got there Thursday. We checked in Thursday night, and right after we checked in at about 11 o'clock, it started snowing, and didn't stop until about noon Friday.
Oh, man. So
right,
didn't get to any Super Bowl parties, nothing?
Forget it. No. We made it to the NFL experience, but that was a $50 cab ride. Yeah, it was either 40. I think it was $50 to get us down there. It was terrible.
So I gotta ask you this again. Super Bowl in Dallas, you say what? Or Arlington, you say what?
Never again.
Ever.
Terrible venue for it. Terrible. Worse than Houston, and Houston was the worst one I've ever experienced. Yeah, worse. And I've got a feeling New York is going to be just as bad.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it in South Beach. I mean, you were talking earlier about that. Yeah, that feel or rhythm.
They need to have that tight knit, where all the hotels are. Mm-hmm. You can't have hotels scattered all over the place and expect people to get into the party rhythm of the Super Bowl. Yes, it's gone very corporate, and the corporate people are getting tickets to a lot of the parties, but it's shutting out the average fan from the excitement of the Super Bowl. And it's supposed to be about the fan, but it's gotten so far away from it.
Yeah. You're telling me that some people are being scalped for tailgate tickets for $2,000. You said $3,800 a ticket for the Super Bowl, something like that.
Right. Yep. The brokers 2 days prior to the Super Bowl, I was following this one broker who happened to be here in the hotel. Tickets started out at $2,400 just to get in, and what I mean by that was end zone tickets. By the time game time was, they were up to $4,000 per ticket.
Jeez.
Then he was also scalping tailgate tickets, and he was telling me they were $2,000 a piece. I started laughing at him. I said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Nope, we're selling them all day long, $2,000 a piece." And there was people outside the stadium scalping the tickets for $2,000 a piece, $1,500 to $2,000. I found this one guy who his friends couldn't get in because they didn't have tickets, so he sold me his 2 for $400, $200 each, which was reasonable.
And again, for those watching, I've always paid like face value. The NFL lets me buy 2 face value tickets at $800. I've shared them with you in the past, and I've never spent anywhere near that for a Super Bowl. That's horrifying. I'm glad I
Oh,
didn't go. Oh, man.
Zenny, by the time I'm done, forget my hotel rooms, but getting back and forth, the tickets, the tailgate that I got shut out, and the hassle of getting in and everything that I missed, all the fanfare that I missed, that's priceless. But I probably spent $4,000.
Wow. Oh, my God. Man, oh, man. So
That's
looking
done.
forward to Indianapolis?
Can't wait.
Oh, by
Indy's
the
going
way,
to be.
you said your son was given a letter by the NFL?
Yep. The English guy came up into the stands and found my son.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting us some food, and he gave us a letter stating that if we send back our tickets, they'll give us a refund of our face value of our tickets. That's all good and well, but it sure doesn't make up for the 4 hours that we lost running around the stadium trying to figure out how to get in, standing in line to be shut out, not going to the tailgate, and missing all the fanfare before the game that was going on surrounding the stadium. I mean, to me, that's priceless. And this was my son's first experience to the Super Bowl. Not a very good experience. Don't get me wrong. Once we got in and we got to our seats and the game started and, he was excited. He had a great time. Halftime, he loved it. He likes the Black Eyed Peas. He's 21.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't he? But the excitement that I wanted to share with him with the tailgate party, everything that goes on outside the stadiums, we missed it all.
Man.
We missed it all because the NFL screwed up. It screwed up royally.
Well, I got to get this out for my viewers. And Stewie, hey, man.
We'll be in touch.
Oh, definitely, my friend. You got it, man. Definitely.
All right.
All right, man.
Take care.
Thanks for your time. All right. See ya.